Hi, guys. Hi, LinkedIn. I hope Mark Ritson is tuning in and maybe my dear friend Byron Sharp for this discussion about business intuition. And with me today, I have the presence of Alex Myers and Rosanna Banji from Manifest, a creative agency. And they just told me that I should say one word more that I don't know. Unified creative agency. That was the word, I think. Was part of a pod, I think it was actually a year ago, where they have their own, is it fresh meat?
Yeah,
Fresh
fresh
meat,
meat.
a year ago that I was part of. And that actually inspired me to start my own talk because I really loved hearing my own voice of that recording. So I thought, why not do this again and do this on a more regular basis? And due to my laziness, I done it now on LinkedIn because I also thought that it was good to spread it in various channels. But before we go further into today's topic, which is going to be the $1 billion question about business intuition, maybe Rosanna and Alex, if you want to start introducing yourselves. I don't know who wants to start first.
Rosanna, you can go first.
Thank you. It's just because you want to know what I'm saying, so you know how much
Yeah,
time you have
absolutely. I'm just
yourself.
going to copy
Yeah,
you. Yeah.
100%. So I'm Rosanna. I am the creative director working out of our Stockholm studio. I've been at Manifest for almost 7 years, which is insane. It's a new record for me every day that I'm actually staying here because I've never been at one company for this long. So that's a testament to the fact that I really like it here. I like the culture and I like the vibe and I like the work that we do. And yeah, I've been working with Alex all these years. Very close.
And I'm Alex. I'm the founder at Manifest, which means I get the grand title of global CEO. But generally, that's a bit of a side hustle. I'm mostly involved as the head of strategy, so working very closely on our work across the UK, Scandinavia, the US, and Australia, helping make sure the brand strategy work we do bleeds into the creative work that we do, that then delivers campaigns that have the impact they need to have. So we have, much more sophisticated bosses running those studios and those territories. I'm just involved. I'm just here for the work and to take the credit for the amazing work people like Rosanna do across the globe.
I when thinking about having you as a guest, I've been reading into your agency and trying to understand kind of where you're coming from, your thinking behind it, and that also kind of inspired to this question of intuition and learning, and I think it was one of the interviews that I saw with you, Alex, that you have a culture where you want people to study more and learn more. And can you please elaborate? Because I've also the reason why I thought that was interesting was that it sounds very logical for me. Of course, everybody should study more to know more to be able to deliver better, and actually feel that you're doing something that is, how do you say, worth something. But at the same time, I read about a company that fired someone because he or she spent too much time learning stuff at work, which is kind of interesting. So
Crazy.
Sounds like a great business.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly.
I think realistically, running a business now for 15 years, I think the truth of the matter is that everyone who's running a business is just making this shit up as they go along. And if they aren't, then they're just following in someone else's trail anyway. So if you're not learning, then what exactly are you doing? You're just standing still. I think there is this concept of, from a professional development standpoint, of iterative improvement, but certainly from a business standpoint, you're only as good in your iterative improvement as your team. And I think at Manifest, since day one, we've had a really healthy imposter syndrome, right? Where we wake up in the morning, certainly I do, and think, oh my God, I'm going to get found out. I need to learn things, I need to absorb things. And as a creative, I'm sure Rosanna can testify to this too. Your output is only as good as your input, and your input can't stop, right? It has to keep moving. And I think people often see learning as just being, the old book learning. If you need to learn something, you clearly don't know something. It's not. The world is changing at a pace that has never been seen before. That means we need to learn at a pace that we need to be comfortable with, but we need to embrace that as part of the job. Learning is doing. So, you know, at the same time, we need to carve that time out. We need to make that happen, but also learn through the work that we do too. Iterative learning means testing and learning. It means having a culture, a freedom to fail, right? That you only know if something's never going to work when no one's tried it before by trying it, you know, and you need to have that freedom in a creative business. But overall, it's helped us, I guess, as well with recruiting people into that culture. I always say that I would never look for the people with all the answers in an interview, for instance. I'm looking for the people who ask the right questions, and are interested in the right things. And people often use the word
So what are the right
curiosity.
questions then? The
Well,
ones
I
that
mean,
you want to
it's
hear?
those people who are curious, those people who ask how it works, or specifically why, right? I think the people for whom they demand a burden of truth on risk as well as on opportunity, they're the people that are going to really drive things forward, because it's quite easy to say why an idea is not going to work. Anyone can do that. That is literally ubiquitous talent. And creative people don't have a talent above anyone else that they can come up with ideas. Everyone has an equal capacity. What they do have, though, is a curiosity to find out if that risk is real, right? And they also have this unique ability to believe in those ideas, right? It's the belief and it's the attitudinal approach to learning and curiosity and freedom to fail that makes people call them creative people. Everyone's equally creative.
So how
But
do you
yeah,
do that? I mean, Rosanna, from your point of view as a creative director, then, I mean, your job is like, you are now the super duper creative. So how do you?
Oh, the pressure.
that's her new job title, actually, super duper
Is.
creative.
Yeah.
Um, no, but what I think is important, and what I think people kind of misunderstand, is the word learning in itself, because learning sounds like you read a book and that's it. But I think for us and for manifesting in our culture, it's all about, like Alex said, it's about the curiosity. It's about encouraging people to be curious. It's about it's about accepting that everyone has different opinions, different backgrounds, different knowledge, different gut feelings, and that they should all trust that. And they should also have that as something that they can teach other people. So it's not always about what's in a book. It's not always about what you can see on YouTube or online or wherever. It's also about learning from the people around you. And I think when I started at Manifest, I was so into this whole, oh, I'm a creative and I should know all the answers. I should have all the ideas. The ideas that I have are the best ones because that's my role.
But they are.
Until, I mean, they're not, because that's what I learned, like throughout the years, throughout all the questions of why this, or why are you saying this, or why are you suggesting this. I learned that the best creative work comes from people working together. And that is because we learn from each other in that room. In that very second when we brainstorm, I learned so much from Alex, from Anna, from Ida, from everyone in my team. And it doesn't matter like who has which kind of title in that sense, as long as everyone is curious to learn from each other. And I think that is something that we've really established at Manifest, that everyone has something important to say, and then we shape everything together. And that's my job, shaping everyone's knowledge and everything they teach me and turn it into something that we can actually use for our clients.
I agree with that massively. I think sometimes people think learning is about kind of learning by rote or repetition, but it's not. It's by realization and collaboration and absorption. You know, that's a real way you learn, and that requires that openness I was just talking about. I mean, there's lots of myths in the creative industries. One of them is that there's no such thing as a bad idea. There absolutely is such a thing as a bad idea, but every good idea started as one. Right.
Yeah.
And the learning is the process from going from bad idea, as in not finished, to great idea, finished. Right. And that, as Rosanna says, is a collaborative effort. Even if it's a case of sounding it out with the wider team, asking people to ask people, talking about just the conversation is a learning process. And that's the exciting bit too, right? Like, I think working in silo is pretty dull. And I think, you know, those people who aren't looking to learn, aren't looking to iterate, feel like they're as good as they can get, then fair enough. But I'd get pretty bored treading water, to be perfectly honest. And I think that's part and parcel as to why people love the creative industries or love working in the creative industries, and indeed should. It's that you're constantly asked to learn. You're required to. You know, that the change is your natural setting. You know, progress is what every day should bring. And for some people, they might find that daunting and they don't belong in this industry. But the ones that do are the ones that love that treading in new snow every day. And, you know, you learn through that experience, like you just said, Rosanna.
And how do you do, like, I mean, because you're an agency, I mean, so the work that you do is a lot for other people, right? I mean, a client comes to you and provides a brief or whatever, but how do you get them to be part of, because they have so much knowledge, of course, of the situation of the business and the business challenges that you might have in front of you. How do you guys involve them in your learning processes and methodologies within Manifest so that you can get the most out of their knowledge of their business situation? Because when I used to be a creative, my problem was that the briefing was normally not so good. So you were kind of inventing your own stuff and trying to invent what the business challenge actually was for the client, rather than them having a good way of teaching you what they already knew.
I think for us, it's about interrogating the briefs that we get as well. It's rare that we get a brief and we say, "Oh, thank you," and then we start working. It's all about, you know, interrogating it. It's all about asking them questions, you know, and being curious. Again, as we learn internally, we want to learn from them as well. So it's about being curious about their business, their product, their service, what they do, why they do it. And we need to ask these questions to even be able to build a strategy to work out of. Like everything that we do has to be built out of something real. So it's not enough to come to us with a brief. We will always have questions. That's our job. If we didn't have questions, we would just be, I don't know, a service online. You can just ask a question, it pops up an answer. Like we need to put the human elements into it, which is curiosity.
And it is that
Here-
curiosity, not just about what people are trying to achieve, but why they're trying to achieve it. In fact, it's not even that, it's enthusiasm. I think we always try and say that Manifest is the agency that doesn't just take the time to understand your business objectives. It takes the time to share your passion to achieve them. And I think you mentioned, Rodrigo, that the briefing process is broken. I mean, it's not broken. It's just got to be seen in the right light, that every brief that asks you to do something specific is bullshit, right? Because otherwise, why are you briefing me? If you know what to do and how to do it, why do you need an agency to come in? The superpower of an agency is to be able to see from the outside in, right? From that zoomed out perspective. You know, we can often speak to a brand about the things that are exciting that they think are dull because they see them every day. The things they think are exciting, we can be honest and say the world thinks they're dull. You know, the truth is there's a bridge between the world and the cultures you're trying to connect with as a brand and your business, and that bridge is generally an agency, and that's a really privileged position to be in. So like Rosanna said, we interrogate the brief, but we collaborate on that brief. Like what I'm listening to in every brief is why you're asking the question. You know, why are you trying to achieve this? And also then providing the trust and the inspiration to get to that, because although pretty much 90% of briefs ask for change, right? They ask to change something. The problem with change is it requires change, and people don't normally want to actually do that, right? So our job is to make change feel safe. And oddly, our industry goes against the grain on that, and they call their work brave all the time. And I'm like, firemen are brave, you know, like we're not. We're producing work in, you know, in the creative industries, and that's fun, right? But the truth is, bravery is doing the same thing you did last year and expecting different results, or doing the same thing like you did last year for a bit less money, right? That's often, you know, part of a brief too. And I think that, you know, as Manifest, we're here to build brands that change the world. That's our manifesto, right? That's what we're trying to do. Helping brands understand how they do change people's worlds, even in a microcosmic level, right? That might be putting one smile on one person's face for one day of the year that wouldn't be there otherwise. It might be providing 2 minutes extra time with their kids before bedtime. Those are the changes in people's lives that actually produce great and significant brands. And that's what we try and outline for people, is probably that connection with what their audience is feeling from the product that they're developing. And I think, you know, the exciting bit is the connective point, and the brief is just the starting point to that. The brief is like the starting pistol, right, in the process. So you can't expect it to be everything and do everything. And naturally, clients try and put in what they want you to do, but they're always open to our opinion on that, because if they knew everything, again, they wouldn't need to be speaking to us in the first place.
And how much do you guys feel like intuition plays a role in, understanding if a brief is good or bad, or if you would have to use your F grant to kick the client? Do you use it by kicking off clients as well, or is it only internally?
I mean, the fuck off grant is an internal policy where we offer people a financial incentive to leave in their first 3 months, just in case they're in a job they don't want, but they're terrified of leaving. And if they don't leave, they give that bonus to the person that made them feel most welcome. So no, we don't do that with clients, but we do absolutely offboard clients if they don't meet our specific criteria. Similarly, we don't answer briefs that don't meet our specific criteria. Firstly, there are values, which are kind of red lines, but then we look at it from a people standpoint first. Is this something that's going to enrich the careers of the people that work here? From a product standpoint, can we deliver work that no one else could deliver for this brand? From a performance standpoint, are we going to be able to do this and not lose money on it? And then centrally, from a purpose standpoint, is this something that's going to allow us to say we changed the world in this way? Is there a measurable impact this marketing activity or this branding activity can have? And that's the criteria that we have for clients. And yeah, sure, I wouldn't say we tell them to fuck off. I would say though that we would politely decline those kind of briefs. I mean, we politely decline briefs every week, sometimes every day.
No, but it's. I'm glad to hear that you're actually using it not only, also in your total culture of how, how you take on new projects and how you take out on new work. But how do you, I mean, in the process you just described, how much of that is like rational and how much is intuition in your decision making, in that way of deciding that, okay, this brief or this person is a person or the company, do you know what I mean? Like, so how do you know that the question is, no, we can't do good work with these guys, or yes, this person, it fits perfect with us? Or
I mean, Rosanna will probably have specific examples around this, but I would say actually one of the interesting parts of that part of the process, or intuition in general, is that people often talk about creativity as an art and they kind of see science as the antithesis, but not at all. The most creative people in the world are scientists, because it starts with a hypothesis. Right? To have a gut instinct that we evolved from apes, or to have a gut instinct that time is relative, like that's creativity, right? And then pursue this pursuit of data to back that up or to disprove it is kind of the creative process in a sense anyway. But I think certainly when you're looking at choosing the work, there's always an instinct. And Rosanna and I we're creatives that do work on instinct a lot, and I think
a lot.
I call it big data for the little guy, right? Before you've got the research, you've got your gut instinct. It's all the variables that your brain can't even compute kind of come through in the gut. But you do need to back that up. You need to say, okay, is this business actually something that doesn't contravene our philosophies and our ethics and our values? Is this business something a brand that can have a legitimate positive impact on the world? Like, those are questions that we then need to kind of ratify during the process. And it's not always at the start where you realize that, but again, that freedom to fail we talk about, you can start and then go, actually, this isn't working. I think too many people aren't honest. There's that kind of sunk cost fallacy where people are like, well, we've started working on it now, so we should finish. That there are two-way doors with every decision, and whether you're working with someone, that's generally a two-way door, right? You can go through it with the passion and aspiration, but if it's not working out, you can always just back out. And people might see it as flip-flopping. It's being decisive, right? It's moving forward with progress and learning from it. And every door you have to back out through helps you not go through the wrong door next time. It's always learning. There are things you get right and there are things you learn from. There's no such thing as mistakes in the creative business. But I think, Rosanna, from your point of view, I mean, how does instinct work when you're producing the work?
I mean, for me personally, this, Alex, I'm very emotional. I'm very intuitive. I'm very led by my feelings, but also the feelings and the opinions of the people around me. So as for this example, when looking at new clients, we do have a proper scorecard that we fill out. We look at, like, okay, do we believe that this is something that we can do and that we can do in a good way and that it, meets our values and all those things. And I can have one opinion and Alex can have a completely different one. And that's when we discuss and that's when we talk about it, to see if it's actually something we can do as manifest or if we need to decline. And I think that is something that gives us internally a lot of trust. It builds a lot of trust within the company and within the culture, which also means that people dare to be honest about it. So when we are looking at, starting talking to new clients, and we do the scorecards and we check and we talk about it, what we can really see is that we need to have like one united front if we're approaching a client or if we decide to work on a client or not, because we don't want two people feeling that it's a horrible idea, because we need everyone to be passionate. We need everyone to feel that curiosity, that excitement about the client. Otherwise, we won't be able to produce good work. So yes, my gut feeling, I listen to that a ton every day in everything that I do, but I also need to be smart about things. I also need to listen to the other people around me, because again, like for me, it's a lot about, my own experiences, what I know, what I think, what I believe, like at the core of me as a person. And that has to connect with others as well. Otherwise, I'll have to work solo, and that is something I will definitely not do. Uh, but I think that is quite important for us to really cherish internally at Manifest as well. And it is something that we cherish, and it is something that we're proud of doing.
When we
Definitely.
were started to build my telescope, the whole idea that we had was enriching your gut feeling. We wanted to find a way of how can you, in a simplest way possible, get as much information downloaded so that you could easily, on your way to a meeting or in the midst of a meeting, try to find that information, but not only on opinions, because I think a lot of the challenge when you look for stuff on the internet is that somebody wrote a blog post or, but you don't see the trend change of that. You see that it's an opinion here and now, but then the question is how much has that opinion changed over time, or is that actually something that people are reacting to?
Yeah.
But at the same time, when you have this intuition, I feel sometimes you don't dare to say it. I mean, what my intuition now with Kamala Harris and Donald Trump was Donald Trump's going to win because America's not ready for a women's president.
Yeah.
That was my feeling, but I didn't really dare to say it because it felt like a bad thing to say. So how do you handle, when you feel something, when you meet, the client, or you have a task or an idea, and maybe the idea that comes up is actually stupid. How do you how do you act on that to not, offend the other person? How do you to encourage a culture where people still dare to come say what they think?
I mean, I think both Rosanna and I are quite offensive. I'm joking. I think it's a real challenge, and it's something I found astonishing when I started the business and I got the job title CEO. Was suddenly people were hiring me for the things they used to fire me for saying. So I do think the messenger is the message sometimes too. And I think if your analytics person is saying this is going to fly with your audience versus the creative, it doesn't feel like Rosanna said, like just an individual's instinct. But that's where data comes in, and analysis and insight becomes really useful, but also testing. Right? It's kind of, okay, so I once had a client saying, I don't like that word. And it's like, well, 99% of your audience say they're more likely to buy your product if it's on it. Do you like selling the product? See if we can get over this hurdle. Do you know what I mean? And it's even worse in branding with color. And those subjective intuitions that come from individuals, you have to look at this collectively and cohesively. And what MyTelescope and other tools that give us that data, insight, and analytics give us is a world purview, right? Like we're asked as marketers to create water cooler moments. I'm probably sounding quite old now, but the idea of the conversation in the office. But what technology gives us is the opportunity to be a fly on the wall at every water cooler, in every office, in every home, in the country, in the continent, in the world, right? To a certain extent. And although it's still only ever a litmus test, it gives you that confidence to have that discussion, right? So Rodrigo, your point around Kamala Harris and America not being ready to vote for a woman, and especially a woman of color, I think it's a really valid point. And I think actually the challenge for you is to say there's lots of research that would back up that point of view. And yes, it might seem bold and like I said before, brave in quotes to step out and say those things, but those are the people that make the difference, the ones that are willing to step out and say the things that tomorrow will be common sense. but no one dare say, right? Everyone's done it the first time. And oddly, marketers, too many CMOs are just looking to not get sacked. And, you know, that's why they don't want to say something that no one else has said before. They don't want to do something that no one else has done before. Yet every single one of them will hold up as examples the people who are absolutely willing to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Richard Bransons of the world, the, you know, political views aside, the Elon Musks of the world, the people who are willing to step forward with a new, fresh idea. And every single new idea, when you have it, you're in a minority of one. Right. And your job is really to try and bring in a collective of people that will believe you. And the data helps you do that, I think.
Yeah.
And I also think there's one thing that's important to remember in this conversation. It is that it's okay to say that it feels scary to say something. It's okay to say that
100%.
This is freaking me out, but I have to say it. This is my opinion. I know it might sound wrong. And it's the same thing when we sell ideas at sometimes, you know, we say that, you know, a good idea sends shiver down your spine. A great idea scares the shit out of you. And it's okay to say that to a client. You know, this is a crazy idea. You guys are probably going to freak out a little bit, but it's also a great one. And I think that transparency also allows for more people to be open to your message, whatever it might be, or your opinion in this case, Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump.
Definitely.
Rosanna, just, you know, I think when you try to just say something quick, we're live. Yeah, I think either your battery of your iPods are breaking up or something. So
no.
Yeah, it's a little bit robotic.
Yeah.
You might just be putting on a robot voice there.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I'll just turn them off then. Wait, you guys chat.
We continue here. No, so I just wanted to say that, so because if not, I know the work I'll have to do in the studio work after to clean that up. That's going to be a mess. No, but then how do you kind of, because the discussion we're having now, and I think when I used to run my agency, was kind of a lot of the discussions we had. But then in the end, we were always strapped out of cash, so we took in whatever we had in front of us. But so I really envy you guys that you've done a fantastic job in, you know, sticking to your guns. But Alex, for you, I mean, now you're, I don't know, many years into this, you know, building your company you're in, but to starting with this clear idea and now be where you are, where you can actually, was it tough in the beginning to like say no to work that you knew that, okay, but it would have been great to take this in because I actually really need the cash now?
Yeah, I mean, every single day, but a principle is not a principle until it costs you money. And I think one of the only time we've ever struggled really from a commercial growth standpoint is when we struggled to say no. Right. So I would contest the perspective on, you know, we have to say yes to this because we need the cash. We need the cash because we said yes to something we shouldn't have done. You know, like if you're not able to produce great work for people that you believe in, and belief is important, not just it's not about being pious and feeling like you're standing on the right side of history. It's about enjoying yourself, right? If you're not able to do work that you're able to enjoy, you're not able to do it to the best of your abilities. If you're not doing work to the best of your abilities, it's not going to have the biggest impact. If you're not having the biggest impact and it's not the greatest work in the world, no one's going to come to you when they're looking for the greatest work in the world, right? So it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. The challenge for businesses is, I wouldn't say it's a fear of saying no. I think it's a prevalence for saying yes. And, you know, we talked before about the people in a business, in a creative business, being so important. And people only ever people aren't stupid. Anyone who's ever hired someone and gone, oh God, they were terrible, they probably weren't. They probably were just not enjoying themselves, right? People underperform if they aren't enjoying themselves. And they might not be enjoying themselves because they're in the wrong job or they're in the wrong position or they're being asked to do the wrong things, for sure. But people underperform only really, you know, when they aren't able to bring their full selves to enjoy the work. And if that means that fun and enjoyment, things that people see as peripheral in a business, actually are central. They're a business critical imperative to everything that you do. Fun is the North Star. If people are having fun, they're fucking good at it. Although having said that, you know, we can all sing, but we're not all Taylor Swift, right? Like you've got to have what we call, you've got to perform within your element, where your enjoyment meets your skill set. right? That's where that collision happens, is where the best work comes from. And enjoyment can't happen if you've said yes to work you don't believe in. You know, we could get a lot of money working for fossil fuel companies. We've been offered a lot of money by tobacco companies to launch e-cig brands before. Like, and you're right, it might help pay for the mortgage, but it's a swift run downhill, right? It's a quick race to the bottom, in the sense of everyone is going to see that we've lost our integrity from a principal standpoint, but they're also going to hate the work. We might get paid a fortune to do it, but good God, like, there are lots of businesses make a lot of money doing work they hate, and fair play to them if they can do that. But I think that's something I couldn't do. I couldn't get out of bed in the morning. And I think that's what is also great about the team at Manifest. You know, people like Rosanna, who are, you know, holding those creative credentials and that creative criteria to their heart and working through it. They're doing that, yes, in a collaborative and ambitious sentiment for Manifest, but also selfishly. Am I right, Rosanna? Like, you want to do work you enjoy doing for people that you love.
Yeah. And again,
So Rosanna, how do you, in your work as a creative director, I mean, in the process of having people to have fun and getting them to actually want to learn something, or, you know, I mean, hopefully they're curious on their own nature, but how do you work? What's your thinking? Do you have a process for it, or is it just more, I'm a happy person in the room, so everybody can be happy? Or
well, I am a happy person, so usually a lot of energy comes from me. No, but I think for me, it's about listening and tuning into the people and trying to figure out what they need, because we're all in, you know, sometimes are super busy, sometimes we're not as busy. It kind of goes up and down. It's very, you know, dynamic in that sense. And for me, it's about making sure that they feel inspired in the ups and the downs. So when we have so much to do and the, you know, it's crazy and everyone is heads down, I need them to have space to back off and just kind of relax for a moment without making them feel that they need to take time to do that. So it has to be kind of in a light, you know, in a lighter way, be like, okay, you need to go out, do, you know, go for a walk, grab a coffee, or I just call them on Slack to chat for a bit and talk about nothing in work during working hours, doesn't matter. But then also what I've seen is when we have less creative work on the table, because there are those times as well, as for anyone, that's when we have the biggest challenges. That's when it's harder to get people inspired because people get tired, right? So then it's for me to, you know, we share a lot. We have a lot of different Slack groups. You know, we share inspiring work that we see. It's everything from read this book, listen to this podcast, watch this clip. There is an art show here. This campaign was fantastic, to kind of get people to feel inspired and to constantly feel like they want to do better the next time something rolls around. So it's all about kind of encouraging everyone to see the opportunity in everything that we do. And also what we do is, like, you know, look at the clients that we currently have. Is there something we can do for them now that we have some time on our hands? And just try to make sure that everyone feels like they're needed and that their opinions matter in everything that we do, whether that is, you know, a press release or a visual asset. You know, everyone needs to feel that they matter. And I think if you can create that culture and that feeling and that sense of, you know, I'm valued here, that kind of brings a lot of creativity, curiosity, and willing to learn in itself.
I think it's a really good point around the role of a creative director there, Rosanna, as well. I think that people often think creative directors are there as the most senior person to deliver concepts. CDs don't deliver concepts, they deliver confidence.
Yeah.
Right? They're not just there to deliver processes and mechanisms. A great creative director delivers motivation. You know, and it's not about also like perfection, it's about progress, and it's not about trying to get to successful work. It's about helping people understand that their work is significant, and that, like you said, Rosanna, that it matters. Like that's really the skill set of a creative director. So for instance, I always feel like as a strategist, you're the composer of music, right? The creative director is the conductor, right? And the creative producers are the players, right? Now you need all of those things to be great, to make great music, to make something that is worthwhile, that sends that shiver down your spine, like you're saying, Rosanna. And I think You know, to get the best out of the players is the job of the conductor, as much as making sure it's in line with the strategy. You know, and I think, you know, Rosanna is a really good example of that, and our other creative directors around the group as well, of understanding that that's the key facet of the role, because that's the bit that's forgotten about a lot of the time. It's not a mic drop CV for a pitch. It's being able to make everyone feel they're part of something that matters.
Yeah.
I would thought that it was only about being that hip hop star. Damn it.
It's that too.
No, but how do you, no, but so basically, I'm just gonna start concluding here. But I mean, I think what's kind of interesting from this talk is that what I've taken with me as well is from what you guys are saying is that like principles will help you to drive your intuition, because you will have an hypothesis of what you think is good and bad. Curiosity to actually want to learn and be open for hearing others' opinions and stuff like that. But also, of course, the collective working with other people, of daring to have those conversations where what might sound stupid is actually an insight, maybe, or a perspective that for someone else. What else do you think people should kind of bring with them in building a culture of, you know, learning and knowledge of, because I think most companies today are going to that, where AI is automating stuff, we can then actually start becoming something else and using our brains for something else, and only maybe just writing monotone stuff. We can actually start using the left side of the brain as well, more than we have today, I think, in our work life. What else do you think that I have forgotten to bring up here, concluding our conversation?
I think one thing that's important is the openness and humanity part of things. You know, we have to kind of go back to, with all the technology, that we need to see that as support for us to, you know, it kind of gives us time to be human. It gives us time to be human with each other, to have that human interaction, and to actually listen to each other, and not just read from a paper or read from a, you know, chat GPT or wherever you get your text from today. You know, listen to the people around you and be open to their opinions. And I think that is what's going to create success in the end, because everyone can get a great press release out of, you know, AI at the moment, but will it matter, and will it hit, you know, the right spots if it's not human? Probably not. There will be that little piece missing. And I think that people will get better, like audiences, and they will get better at recognizing what's got a human touch and not. So if you bring more humanity and more openness into your work culture, it will reflect in the work that you produce, and it will also reflect in the results of the business you're trying to grow.
Yeah, I think I agree with everything you've just said, Rosanna. I would just say, when you're bringing someone into the team, but also when you're developing, especially junior members of the team, there's a couple of like hard and fast rules. Like, we have a rule: no brilliant dickheads, right? So it doesn't matter how good you are at your job, if you're not going to be nice to people, you don't belong at Manifest. You know, it's not one of our values, but we work hard and be nice to people is in the contract, you know. But the other thing to remember, if you're a business owner or running a team, is that people aren't problems. Something we've focused on a lot for the last probably 10 years is becoming what we call a deliberately developmental organization, where if you don't see people as problems, right? Because if you do, you just point the finger, get rid of a person, or don't care that they leave. The truth is, behaviors are the problem, and behaviors are where people and environment collide. And by you pointing the finger at a person, you're not being accountable for the culture that you've generated. And culture is sometimes as easy to change as flicking a switch, or turning a giant tanker in the night. You've no idea really how big that challenge is going to be until you get to the behavior. But if you see behaviors as something that people can change, then you are, as Rosanna mentioned before, open-minded about potential. You know, and what you've got to judge is people's potential, not their current performance. The gap between the two is your responsibility as an employer, and you know, it's their motivation too. But too often I see people saying, yeah, or agency owners saying, "Oh, we just can't find creatives that can do X, Y, Z." And it's like, oh, maybe you've not provided an environment for creatives to do X, Y, Z. There's maybe you're not, because you've not worked in the creative process, maybe you're not necessarily giving the right environment or the time or the perspective required to make that work. And I think being open, I think people often call ego shouting about what you're great at and saying you're really good at this, you're really good at that. That's bullshit. Ego is not knowing what you're bad at. Right? If you're a leader in a business, focus on what you're not very good at. Fix those behaviors that are fixable, but the ones that aren't, find the people who are great at that stuff. Right? Lionel Messi is shit in nets. Right? He's not the greatest footballer that ever lived. He's the greatest footballer in his position in that team that ever lived. Right? And you've got to be able to see things in the round. And as a leader, I think it's about looking at the whole board. It's about saying, okay, what do we hold ourselves accountable for in this performance or in this development of this individual, and providing an environment for learning where people don't feel guilty for taking the time to learn is part and parcel of their progress. You cannot be frustrated at a member of the team who isn't progressing, isn't getting better, when you've not given them any time, space, or permission to do that.
Okay, guys, thank you so much for being here. But before I leave you and let you leave me, what is your favorite book, film, something that you would recommend someone to check out for this weekend? Now I put you on the spot, I know.
You have. Do you want me to go first, Rosanna?
Yes. I'm not going to have a smart answer for this, by the way. Okay.
It's never a
I'm
smart
going to go
answer.
entertainment first. I would say that the latest series of Industry, so that's HBO and BBC, so I'm not sure where it is around the world. Industry is the best show on TV at the moment. And I get obsessed sometimes by certain shows, or like what used to be box sets. West Wing is still my long-term obsession. And in fact, if you've not seen West Wing, just watch the whole of West Wing. And if you have, watch it again. And that would be my advice this weekend.
Okay, mine is slightly different. Christmas is coming. Yes, it starts in November, for me at least. And so my recommendation is for everyone to start watching the first Harry Potter movie on Sunday, because if you do and you watch one every Sunday, you'll have to watch the seventh, like the two parts of the seventh movie at the same Sunday, but then it will be Christmas once you're done. So that is my recommendation. Start your Harry Potter marathon right now, every Sunday till Christmas.
And then
Perfect.
just from a work perspective, I would say that there's a great book called The Undercover Economist. There's also, these are the foundational for me, Misbehaving, the Richard Thaler book on behavioral economics, and John Hegarty's, all of his books on the creative process, and being, where great creative comes from. I think it was actually a Dave Trott book, though, that I nicked the line, change requires change, but also anything by Dave Trott. Like, read, like, enjoy it, listen to them on audiobooks if it's easier, but, become a student of the game.
Yeah. As for books, I had to Google the name because I keep forgetting. A Swim in a Pond in the Rain is a great book, not just because the book is great, but for the copywriting. It's a fantastic book for everyone to read. So to get some inspiration, I recommend that one.
And I have the chance to run this show, so I can tell you, Alex, I don't agree that Messi is not the best football player all around. But you're actually right, it's Maradona. But
but my point is, like, Maradona and Lionel Messi won't be able to play in goals, right? Like, I mean, they probably can, better than I can.
I totally agree with you. I just wanted to be able to bring that in because I have a figure of him here watching me when I'm talking. So
I think you'll find the greatest footballer that ever lived is a gentleman called Dean Windass, who used to play for my team, Bradford City. So yeah, I think you'll.
But let's have the next talk about who's the best football player if we would place him in another position than the one they used to play.
That's interesting.
You guys do that. I'll bounce up with that.
You're checking out at this point.
All right, guys. Thank you so much. Have a nice weekend when it's time. And thank you for joining me.
No problem.
Bye.
Bye.